This long-nosed dragon was the first find of the trip and turned out to be one of the more common species observed in Central Australia. The first snake of the trip was this beautiful eastern Stimson's python found in one of the gorges of the West Macs. This was a big target for me as I had missed seeing one on my first trip in 2010. This also turned out to be a very common species on the trip, and we saw several of them. The inland marbled velvet gecko is a beautiful species that also turned up quite frequently. It's so crazy to see these bright green Centralian tree frogs in the middle of the rocky canyon. We headed over to the East Macs where we saw this amazingly huge ghost gum. Pretty cool sight. It was very dry and very hot in the East Macs, and we didn't see much aside from these beautiful inland marbled velvet geckos. On the way out of the East Macs, we spotted this beautiful parenti monitor. It crossed the road, went and sat on the side of the road for a bit, and just soaked in the sun. Such a cool lizard. After a bit, he decided he was done with us and started to wander off. What a cool experience. We followed him for a little bit longer, but then he got sick of us and basically turned on the gas and took off like a rocket. We headed up north to a sandy area to look for Woma pythons. While we didn't get lucky enough to see one up here, we did see some very cool birds like these pink cockatoos. On the drive out, we spotted several of these central netted dragons, as well as a very nice sand monitor. Back in the West Macs, we spotted more inland marbled velvet geckos, as well as this juvenile freckled monitor, Varanus tristis. Our next stop was Ormiston Gorge, where we saw this beautiful Stimson's python and a fat-tailed gecko. The gorge was a great place to sit and relax, kind of recover a bit, watch the ants crawl around on the rocks, and just enjoy the nature around us. Our next find was arguably the best find of the trip, this beautiful Centralian python, Morelia bredli. This perfect young specimen had recently shed, made its way down to eye level, and just let us sit and enjoy it. It was fantastic. Due to their arboreal nature, these pythons are rarely seen crossing the roads. You basically have to walk along creek beds and look up in trees. So this was definitely a welcome sight after hours of searching. Once the snake had had enough of us, it made its way higher up into the canopy. You can see how adept these guys are at climbing. You can also see how difficult it would be to spot one high up in the branches of a tree. They blend in pretty well with their surroundings despite the color contrast against a green background. I'm still not sure if my neck has recovered from staring up in the branches of the trees at night, but it was well worth it to see this snake. As we sat and watched the snake climb higher and higher, something caught my eye blowing in the wind. It turned out to be a shed skin next to a tree hollow, so it appears this animal had shed its skin and come down. Pretty cool. Riding on the high of finding the centralian python, we went out again and happened upon this beautiful young centralian knobtail gecko, another key target for me. On their way to catch up with us, the other car found this mulga snake. Some friends from Melbourne that we met in the field were nice enough to sit and watch the snake while we drove back to it after the other guys had told us about it. As you can see, he was a little bit twitchy, but pretty well behaved and posed nicely for photos and video. While you have to respect a highly venomous snake like the mulga, they usually just want to get away, and most of their defensive stuff is bluff, but you don't want to take any chances either. We headed down south towards Batarka, stopped at a rock outcrop and saw a few geckos, including a Gigahyra and this target species, the Marini velvet gecko. You'd be hard-pressed to find a more beautiful gecko than this. Look at those bands of purple and yellow. Incredible. This male was somewhat darker than the first female we found, but nonetheless very beautiful. We spotted this northern spiny-tailed gecko crossing the road. They have such an unusual gait. These are another iconic species in the deserts of Central Australia. We saw several of these Slater's ring-tailed dragons as we hiked through the Kings Canyon area. Such beautiful landscape and really fun to see these high heat loving lizards. We road cruised this Burton's legless lizard. It had kind of a darker pattern, which looks to be typical for this area. We stopped at Curtin Springs for some cold drinks and ice cream, and we're joined by this cool sand goanna. He stopped to take a drink from this little pool of water that had accumulated under the air conditioner. Pretty cool to see this behavior. Is this where they got the phrase flat out like a lizard drinking? While following the first sand goanna, I heard rustling in the bushes and found the second sand goanna. Apparently they're pretty common around here. Very beautiful. We arrived at Yulara just before dark, so we were able to see Catajuta and Uluru just on sunset. Road cruising at night yielded this beautiful western brown, but unfortunately had been clipped by a car. The next snake that showed up in the headlights was this amazing woma, another huge target for us on this trip. This is another elusive and beautiful desert snake that doesn't often make an appearance, so we were very happy to see it. I probably could have followed this snake around all night just watching its natural behavior. So cool to see the species in its natural environment. Catajuta is another iconic spot down here in Central Australia. Camels were introduced to Central Australia to make travel through the desert easier, but now they've become established and are a bit of a problematic species to have here. We found this Centralian earless dragon while walking a trail through Catajuta. These heat-loving lizards remind me a lot of the horned lizards from North America. These guys blend in pretty well with their surroundings. The bird life was pretty great. The Taresian crows accompanied us on the hike, probably looking for a little bit of a handout. It was extremely hot, but that didn't stop this little Centralian earless dragon from being out and about. Man, this beautiful landscape is one of my favorite places on Earth. At night, we were able to find another cool target species, the smooth knobtail gecko, Nephrurus levissimus. This species is a sand dune specialist, making its way with ease across the landscape. We found this common knobtail gecko, Nephrurus levis, about 20 feet away from where we'd seen the smooth knobtail gecko. This Nephrurus levissimus was out of this world beautiful. Just look at that pattern. We turned up this western hooded scalyfoot in the dunes as well. It looked to have some weird pigmentation issues, but probably just an old individual. While this footage isn't great, we were able to see some more military dragons zipping through the spinifex near Catajuda. This old man, central netted dragon, was sitting on the side of the road. Luckily, it hadn't been hit. This juvenile sand guano was crossing the road and held still for a bit of video and photos. Next, we headed to the iconic big rock, Uluru. This iconic monolith looks very different up close. Thousands of zebra finches were seen flying through the area. Such a cool little species. The zebra finches were hanging out at this permanent water source for a drink, each taking their turns. On the last day of the trip, and coincidentally on Jordan's birthday, we headed up further north to the southern extent of the range of the black-headed python. We spotted this western brown, which was pretty easy going and let us take some video and photos. Target acquired. It was so great to see this black-headed python and really made the last day of the trip extra special. While black-headed pythons aren't the rarest species, it was still great to see one on the edge of its range. We also found a couple Stimson's pythons on the way out. Man, this trip was fantastic. What a great crew and a great time.